Welcome to the Business for Makers podcast, brought to you by George Supply Company. Each episode, we explore topics you need to know to grow your maker hobby into a maker business and brand. I'm Scott Shervitz. This week, we get a wealth of actionable tips and tricks about markets, fairs, and festivals from Leah Parker of Parker Place Woodwork. All right. Today we're talking to Leah Parker of Parker Place Woodwork on Instagram and the brains behind the Markets, Fairs, and Festivals Instagram series. So welcome, Leah.
Thank you, Scott. It's nice to be here.
So for those not familiar with your work, it looks like you do cutting boards, charcuterie boards, some giant ass scroll saw signs, some mallets. What am I missing?
Hey, I just did 25 kazoos the other day, and that was a
Is that
blast.
what those
Yeah.
is that what those were? I saw a picture and I didn't know what they were. Kazoos?
Yeah,
Wow. It
I
worked?
have they still did fantastic. And what was even greater is that they were like ingrain kazoos, which I don't know if that can be fancier than that. So,
Nice.
yeah.
So is there a special hardware for those that you buy
You
or
know,
it's just all
I
wood?
It's all wood, and you make a little topper, and then you sandwich like a trash bag in between it, and then you just get to blowing on it, and it's really not a whole lot of science, just a lot of fun. It's a kazoo.
That's cool. Super
Yeah.
cool. So, well, let's bust right into it. You've spent some time now communicating with other makers about tips and tricks regarding their market operations. So, I have a few questions from the various editions you've done so far of the markets, fairs, and festivals. So, from edition way back in edition one,
Mhm.
how what did you learn about how you choose markets to do and what other people how they
Um,
choose which ones to do?
there was a so I came into this question with very limited knowledge. I'm from a small town in East Texas. The only markets I currently do are small town East Texas markets. They just happen to do it really well. But the reason why I posed the question was there something that I'm missing? And so when I posed the question, I knew that I would glean information from some bigger cities that have a lot more diversity with what they offer makers like myself. And I do have neighboring cities that I could explore those options. But I think what I learned the most was that when you're choosing your markets, you need to know who you are first and what you want. For those that have a lot of different options out there, again, that's not necessarily me, but there are certain markets that I've gleaned from friends on the internet that did better to suit their wares. So, art festivals and art markets and fairs trended to be better for many of the people who chimed in. And they are also people who have similar items that I sell as well. Um, but the other huge thing that I learned was pop-ups, pop-up markets. That is a great place to be able to get seen more because you don't have a whole lot of competition at a pop-up. So I'm talking places like coffee shops, breweries, any small where there is an event going and you can tag on to it.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I learned a lot that that's a great place to be able to set up shop.
Interesting. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's some I guess it's a farmer's market near us
Hmm.
also where people will set up a shop,
Hmm.
a pop-up. Well, that sounds
Yeah.
awesome. And I could definitely see with the art fairs, you're getting somebody who might be willing to appreciate a product for its artistic value as well as its
Yeah.
utilitarian and maybe
Yes.
not look at that $500 end grain cutting board as just a cutting board. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
interesting.
The folks, it was rumored that the folks that are going, their motivations hinged heavily on how they spent their money. And so looking at the markets that I have exposure to, I stopped looking at how many people are attending and I started looking at why are they attending. And it helped me call out a lot of options that I thought maybe I should push into this. And it helped me second guess it in the correct ways.
It kind of almost goes back to Instagram followers.
Hmm.
And, it's all fun and games to have 50,000, I'm sure. But if
Yep.
49,000 of them are bots and they're not your customers,
Yep.
you really haven't done anything
Exactly.
for yourself. Yeah.
Yep. Are
Oh,
you
interesting.
cultivating the following that you want, the people that you
Right.
want to interact with? Yeah.
Yeah. Your people, your tribe.
Yep.
So, also from that edition, so how many fairs and events are you going to now? And what did you learn about how many other people are going to?
So I kind of, for myself, let me answer myself first. I go to two, maybe three during the market season. I have one higher end market where I'm one of three vendors, and this particular market has twice a weekend every month venue, and they bring in tons of people to this venue, and then they rotate vendors throughout the year. So I'm able to participate once a year. So that's my high end market, and I get to go to that in March. I used to do a big market in Texas called Canton, which was a great, the way that I got into it was just completely ridiculous. And I actually taught the guy who owned the entire market, which was miles and miles of vendors. I'm talking thousands of vendors. He owned the entire town. I taught his granddaughter, and they were able to give me one of the prime spots back whenever I was doing pallet wood and wall decor. And I was actually able to put my husband through his second degree just off of what I would sell in a weekend at that market. And now
Yeah.
this is yeah, it's impressive the things I
Yeah.
was making and how much I was making off of it. But it went to show me that particular venue with the foot traffic, with the motivations, even what I consider a lower end product that I've made to be able to get that type of retail off of a weekend was insane. But now, 3 kids later, I have very much smaller markets that I do. They're normally half day, with the exception of the bigger one that I have in the spring. But what I learned from some of the other folks, the bigger city folks, markets are really competitive. When you are able to get a spot, a good spot, you have to keep that spot every year, or there was just a lot of kind of elbow and edging that they had to do to get into these better markets, and then not even to mention all the rules and the red tape. Uh, I learned a lot
Yeah.
that small town is a little bit more kicked back, you know?
Uh-huh. Yeah. I
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah, especially, maybe some temporary licenses that have to happen and
Oh yeah.
showing
Like,
having a sales tax license. You don't just grab stuff out of
yep.
your garage and just go. They want to know you're a business. That's
Yes,
interesting.
and copycats. I learned that if you bring a product and it sells well and the guy down the road sees it, that next time that you're at that market, you might see that guy carrying your product. Everybody has that eye out, which is so funny because I feel like the Instagram maker community, we are so, you have things like that happen, but it is such a different community than the rumors that I've heard of some of those markets.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
in Instagram and in the community, we'll make it, and if you want to make it, we literally tell you how to make it and show
Yeah.
you and make a video, and
Yeah.
here's how you do the same thing I just did, because there's enough
Hmm.
for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's interesting, but it's a little different when you're showing somebody 14 states away versus the guy who's going to have
Yeah.
a 8-foot table six
Yep.
feet away from you, and you're both now there's a price competition. How that's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
From edition two of markets, fairs, and festivals, you asked for feedback on table setups: U-shaped, V-shaped. I mean, I-shaped, something
all the
else.
letters.
All the letters. What did you learn there?
So displays and your setup, the way that you approach getting there, getting set up, I think I like that conversation the most because I think that there's so much creativity that goes into it, and there's the aspect of how can I get the most of what I have? How can I catch your eye? And so I learned um, the reverse pack. So when you pack your truck in reverse, so whenever I had not been doing that, and I feel so shameful. Like that's such a practical thing that I wish I would have thought of.
Yeah.
But so many people came in with just gems of these tips and tricks on pack your stuff backwards, use your crates that has your product as your also your display so that you get height on your table.
Sure.
um yeah, so things like that, and then even down to the other hot topic that we spoke about during that one is like packing your market bag, so having all your extras in seconds on zip ties. I learned that Velcro ties are way smarter because you can reuse them. So there was that part of the setup and your how to prepare to get there, what you do when you get there. But the displays, I think everybody is looking for the easiest, the lightest,
Hmm.
the fastest.
Yeah, because
And
you have to carry everything out of your car. Who knows how
exactly.
far? Hundreds of feet, hundreds of yards.
Yeah.
That
And
I
being a
yeah.
woodworker, yeah, that's a heavy
Yeah.
transaction for whenever
Right.
you have all the boards. But I narrowed down the displays to, besides having your tables, it really comes down to your DIY version, which is what I bring to mind. At the moment, that was the cheapest, fastest, most practical way for me to get a display that I could change up because I use peg holes. Um, and it comes with its drawbacks, but I think each one of the options came back with drawbacks. So there's a DIY option. There are the wire grids that you could buy into, but the drawback there is being able to fasten. Can it hold your stuff, and can you fasten
Hmm.
your things to it? And then there was this one that I had never seen before, and I wish I could remember the maker that had it because I've only seen one girl have it, but it's a mesh wall system. And you would think that this mesh wall would not be able to hold anything heavy, but she had heavy works of art hung up all over it. And so it was a pretty pricey buy-in, but the look that it gave was clean, it was light to transport. And so hopefully that forum gave all of us, a place to start and a place to shoot for.
Uh-huh. Right on.
Yeah.
Um, let's see here. Okay, then also from the next edition, edition 3, I saw you had a huge sign for payment, right? A great
Hmm.
big, looks like 4 feet tall for people to pay you. It's got the
Hmm.
QR codes for it look like some third party apps.
Hmm.
So somebody wants to buy something. Are you hand calculating what that's going to be? And then they scan the Venmo QR code and pay you the $78? Is that the logic that happens there?
I will profess to you, I have no shame in my game, okay? I am learning, and the hardest part for me is the checkout.
Yeah.
I will fumble numbers. I get my customers sometimes to second like to check my math. Like I
Uh-huh.
Public math is the worst for me.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and so with my booth setup, I don't have a checkout booth, and I was having problems with it getting congested. And I had a friend, she suggested to me, she said, why don't you try and get your checkout information up in front so you can do that outside your booth while other people still shop.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and so I have a great relationship with a local print shop. And I called them on a Friday at 9 a.m. and I said, can you get me this sign for my Saturday market? And she said, sure. So I made the graphic, I sent it to her. And and they had it hanging outside the door because they closed at 12 and I couldn't get there till 1. And so they had it hanging in a little bag that said Leah. And
Welcome
but
to
I was
small
able.
town business. All right.
Yes, yes. It was
Because you're the
great.
only Leah. You're also
It
the only
is,
Leah in
yes.
town.
Oh, goodness gracious, I dropped you. That's exactly right. And so I was able to get that, that piece of
Hmm.
cardboard basically. It's just an outdoor sign that you
Yeah.
would put in the stakes.
Foam core.
And
Yeah.
yes, exactly. So I was able to put that in the front of the booth and it solved all my problems. I still would mistakenly take some payments inside the booth, but I got it to where I would point them that direction and then meet them over there.
Okay.
And it solved a problem for me.
Okay. So you do the
Yeah.
math and then they figure out how they want to pay you Here's your
Yes.
options. And you're doing,
hmm
what was it, Venmo and what, PayPal?
I have Venmo, PayPal, and then I've got cash on me, and then I have
Yeah.
Square, the card
Okay.
reader.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I would do without Square. It's
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
one of the best. I would love to know different options, and so I need a little notepad so I can write down to that needs to be our next form question.
I think, there's not much, well, there's other ones out there. If you
Yeah.
have, if you use QuickBooks, there's a
hmm
cool one that integrates
Okay.
directly with QuickBooks. Um, but yeah, Square or Block, as it's called
Yeah.
now, I think that's pretty universal
Yeah.
all the way
Standard.
around. Yeah. Um, okay, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. I also saw on that episode you had a half day event in Atlanta, Texas.
Yes, sir.
How long did that take to set up for just a half day event?
Well, I
Seems
might
like
have
it'd
shot
take you
myself
half
in
the
the
day to
foot.
set up.
I showed up at 7 and I added, oh, just like 3 to 4 more displays to my setup. And really the reason why I did it was I'd left part of my DIY pegboards. I left 2 of them in the rain months back, and it just about ruined them. So I did a quick little paint and refab job on them, and they ended up turning out great. I have a reel on it, a few reels back, and so anyways, now I had 2 back panels, 2 long 8-foot tables, and then additional uh, 2 by 8 panels to set up. And I told you I've got no shame. I will also admit I just didn't pack my tables that morning at all. So I show up with all my panels. I have no tables. And I look at my husband and I said, "Oh, Seth, go get the tables." And so he, of course, takes off and then calls me, "Where are they?" And we have to figure that out. Long story short, my setup took from 7 to 9. It like I was setting up the entire time.
That's
Um,
faster than I thought. Okay.
yeah, well, I
So
was
you were
hustling.
close.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fast. So we've discussed all these additions and asked you a lot of
hmm
questions that you
Yeah.
have asked other people. And so you're here collecting all this data about how people are marketing and executing their markets and getting tips
hmm
from other people. Did anything surprise you in all this stuff? In all these questions that you ask people? Was anything, I mean, I guess probably the reverse uh,
Yeah.
car loading was probably a big
Yeah.
one. Was there anything like completely shocking?
Uh, I think the first shocking thing, and it's not a thing that I learned, the first shocking thing is how willing people are to share and how many things that I hadn't thought of. Like the vast amount of, I mean, I've been doing these, I wouldn't call myself a professional, especially if I'm leaving my tables at home, but there are things that I've thought about this, and there are all these tiny nuanced tricks that make this such a more enjoyable experience now having them in my bag. And the thing that shocks me the most is how just employing 2 to 3 to 5 different things that I've read, just employing those has already made my next market less angsty. And I think a lot of
Mhm.
people dodge markets because of the work, because the
Yeah.
risk of failure, time, money, and
There's some
there's these
investment.
things where,
Yeah.
yes, but if you are, digesting this information as it's coming out, it has already, tailed off a bunch of failure that you could have had just by employing the things that these people have, suggested. Um,
Hmm.
I've also met with just today. Uh, I'm going to call him a market expert based off of his 8 years of doing markets with a high-end coffee company, and seeing how many other people have the same passion towards markets and then getting them plugged into this forum so that we can share. I didn't expect that. I mean, I had a 10-minute conversation with a guy who knows vastly more than what I ever will about markets, and he was just so willing and giving with his thoughts.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
It was
awesome.
really cool.
Yeah. So you're getting all this information. Now, so you're working on something, right? What's the plan here? You got all this data, all this
Mm-hmm.
information, all these questions, all these answers, tips from everybody and their mother,
Yeah.
experts, amateurs. What are you doing with all
Yeah,
this?
that's the exciting part. The 1 minute backstory is I was sick a while back, couldn't get rid of a cold. I ended up getting a steroid shot to get over this cold, and it threw my brain into a straight line. And it just so happened the weeks before this fateful steroid shot, I had been really disgruntled with my Instagram reach, and I got tired of the content that I was doing and the kind of the rat race I was playing at. And I told my husband, I said, I want to start talking about something that I want to talk about. That way, if it doesn't go, if it only sees 5 people and they talk back to me, at least we're talking about something that I feel, that I want to hear about. So I shifted. I started coming up with this idea to shift to market season because there's a lot of things to digest in it. And so I get this steroid shot, and then what happened to my brain was I started thinking about markets, and then I went down this deep rabbit hole of what all can we actually unpack here. And in 24 hours, I pitched this idea to Workbench Con on, hey, if you guys are here to bring content creators deeper into our craft and how it can marry with what we do at home, then this is a great way to talk about how markets can meet content creators and bring both your social media along as well as your craft further and faster, or further faster, yes.
Hmm.
So I pitched it to them. They loved it. And so now what I'm doing is I'm curating all of this content. I'm pulling from the best minds that I think are here on Instagram. And I'm basically making a how to on how to approach markets, how it can bring your social gathering, your social media gathering further, give you a wider variety of audience, which is that's kind of in the next few places that we're gonna
Hmm.
start talking about in the forums, and so I'll be able to present it at Workbench Con at the expert desk. Um, the
That's super
further
exciting.
It's exciting.
Super.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to be able to talk about it, but I'm coming as a host. I'm not coming as an expert, and I hope folks know that I have a lot of secondhand information from other really smart people. I'm just the one that's gathering it and giving it one place for people to go.
Hmm.
Um, we have hopes of making an ebook, some way to be able to get hold of this information. And I'm talking with the Maker Collab about how we can get this information to them. If you have a subscription, you'll be able to get it for free in that forum. So those are a few of the different places that we're hoping to be able to put all this whenever it's done. And then lastly, the other great part about it is everybody who's contributed, I have a log of every name who has commented, who has asked questions, and at the end of it, I hope to be able to cite my sources and to get traffic back to the people who had the conversation initially. Because it's a treasure trove of people that you can go and follow and then now become part of their following and have these conversations beyond this content.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Wow.
Ah,
It's almost like it'll be a flywheel effect of exactly people contributing to
yeah.
you. You're going to spin it around, and
hmm
other people will be able to get the knowledge and follow the other
hmm
people.
That's the
Fantastic.
hope. And yeah,
So how far you got a lot of work still to do?
I do. I
Right,
do. It is
right.
like a laughable amount.
Are you gonna what are you gonna do? You gonna do like slides behind you and do a talk? Is that the plan? Or you how do you envision this
Expert
thing? Just curious.
Oh, no, that's great. And I like the question because I'm developing and talking to different people on what is the best way to present. Now, Expert Desk at Workbench Con, it's not a class that you can take. It's more of a place that you go. It's an actual forum. We're going to go sit at a round table. I present this information. I'm going to have some kind of a physical form of it for the folks that show up at Workbench Con, just because I'm old school and I believe that things
Hmm.
need to be touched
Uh-huh.
and you can write notes. And so the hope is to have the conversation there, present what I've already curated as far as the content for markets, and then continue that conversation with those who are interested in it in that, at Workbench Con for those 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. I haven't been.
Yeah.
I want to go at some point. It looks cool.
Oh, please go.
You've
That
been
would be
there?
great.
You've been
I got to,
before?
yeah, I got to go last year with, I'm
Okay.
actually wearing their shirt. I went with Bearwoods Supply last year and
Okay.
helped teach all their the things that they sell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What did we miss? What did we not
Oh,
talk
good
about?
gracious. Well, I did just release my newest forum, and today is over prices of your products.
Oh, that's
Uh,
hard.
it is, and I piggybacked because I feel like these two things they interlock and they overlap. So pricing with products and your inventory variety. Do you bring
Hmm.
one high-end, cutting boards, which I saw a guy in Canton, that is all he sold was the highest end cutting boards and nothing else. And he
Hmm.
sold out almost every weekend.
Wow.
Or are you, I know, it was crazy. He must have been banking. Or are you more like me? I try and meet multiple price points,
Hmm.
multiple products with those price points. So I have a high-end cutting board and then a low entry way cutting board that I bring, and then down to the smaller $5 to $10 small ball kind of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
the reason why I do that, I told a friend today, it is not exactly business based. I like making a lot of different things.
Well,
If I
yeah,
had to
yeah.
make one niche, I'm sure it looks like I niche down, but hopefully with the kazoo thing, that will break that mold of anybody who thinks that I do. I like to make a lot of stuff, so I try and meet a bunch of different customers in that way,
Hmm.
I'm probably not. I'm probably more of an experiment than I am like do as I do.
Hmm.
How about let's learn from my failures? That would be a better way to describe me as a maker.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were doing a variety of things, and we stumbled upon cigar ashtrays, and
I saw that.
we sell a lot of them. And well,
Okay.
for us, for the time we have to
Right.
devote to it, and it's like it's the only thing we've been able to do for a year. You hardly get
Yeah.
to any. In fact, now we were briefly discussing what we're going to do for Christmas gifts, and like
Cigars.
we're questioning if we'll ever have time to do even. Usually, we
Hmm.
make Christmas gifts for everybody, but I
Hmm.
don't know. These darn
If it's
cigar
not broke,
ashtrays.
don't fix it.
Yeah. So, so we
Right?
just we use different kinds of hardwoods, exotic hardwoods, and it makes them all different.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it
Yeah.
is interesting because when you do one thing, you could certainly find ways to get better and better and better and better
Oh,
versus making a bunch of them. But it just depends how much time
yeah.
you have. And I could see where, every once in a while you're like, oh, one more
Yeah.
cigar ashtrays. I'm going to blow my brains out.
Yeah. Well, anybody who does markets, they know the word batching.
Yeah.
Batching is either a cuss word or it's a superpower, and a lot of times it's both, you know.
Yeah.
But I had another girl. She wanted me to add to the list, the forum list of things that we've talked about on how to prepare for markets. What tricks and tips do people have? And I'm glad she said it because I've the past 2 years, I've tried to be more efficient and smarter on where I batch. And then now I've gotten to the point where I maintain a certain amount of product at all times. So my
Hmm.
last market, I sold 3 or 5 of these little serving knives. Now I know I need to go make 3 to 5 more of those to get it back up to where I need to be for
Hmm.
my next one.
Yeah.
And so I'm never preparing for a market. I'm always recovering from one, and
Okay.
bringing my product back up to line.
All in
Um,
perspective. I saw
it is.
you were batching out some scroll saw signs too. You're literally
Yeah, yeah,
stacking up the plywood and you're
yeah.
cutting two at a time.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Builder Challenge Central, they have a Spooky Edition challenge going right now. And of course, I'm getting ready. I really should be making Christmas gifts right now, getting ready for Christmas markets. But I wanted to show that if you are looking at markets, to use your time wisely and be smart about it. Instead of making one, you make three. So the hour that it took me to cut one, I could have used that hour to cut three at a time. You still have to log in the hours on the back end with the sanding and the finishing. But if batching is the way that you're trying to, or if you're trying to make multiples to get your
Hmm.
market set up to have more quantity, I'm hoping to show some tips and tricks on how to do that. And so tomorrow I'll release another reel on how to kind of hack sanding, which I'm not really sure if there's a way to hack sanding. You just have to do it. but
Yeah.
I invested in better tools for my craft, and it has cut my sanding in half of what it
Oh,
used
great.
to be about a year
Hmm.
ago.
I,
So surf prep,
you do.
that's the
Yes. Yeah,
hack.
that is it, right?
Yeah,
You do find out along the way that it's all in the tools. I mean, right?
absolutely.
And
Yes.
just when you think you've upgraded, you realize,
Yeah.
oh, there's a whole nother level above this, right? And
Yes.
all that, right?
Yes.
And there's so much better, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Especially with
yeah,
sanders. I feel like that with a sander, whenever you go to one of those higher quality, you want before you buy in, you want to yeah about all those people who have the fancy sanders. You want to say, oh, they're spending but then you get one and the Kool-Aid has been drank, you know,
yeah.
big time. I love
Right.
them.
Yeah, that's. I'm Scott Shervitz, and thank you for listening to the Business for Makers podcast, brought to you by George Supply Company. Subscribe to our podcast to get regular insights and tips for building your maker business, and you can get more information about building your brand, selling merchandise, and maintaining your business operations, all at georgesupplyco.com. Of course, special thanks to Leah Parker of Parker Place Woodwork.
Powered by Riverside FM.